we have a 9-point screening process, and I wanted to dive into each one of those really quickly. Dom's going to put that link in the Zoom chat bar. And then I'm actually going to pull up our website and we can read, not that we're going to read them together, but just where we have them on our website. They have to be clear kind of for everyone to see, and where our tenants kind of see them throughout the process. And then, feel free to use that link that we send you, that website, to kind of come up with your own rental requirements or bounce any ideas off of them, because I think, the better we can hold and manage our own properties, the better name we're going to put out in the industry. And so I'm going to share my screen really fast. Let me know if you guys can see that. So this is our perfect. So this is our rental requirements, and it's just on our website, the mjapropertymanagement.com. Go to available units and then click on rental requirements. The tenants, the first page of our application, the tenants actually have to read through this, and there's a bullet point that says, yes, I read and agreed to all of your rental requirements and I still want to apply. So the 9 points of those that we go through really quickly is just identification. We want to know who's living in the property. We want to know, that whoever they say they are on the application is actually matching a form of ID that they've provided. And so we do require ID, passport, social security, or I-10 number. And then everyone over the age of 18 does have to provide this documentation and are required to apply. So anyone over the age of 18 will get a background check and they will have to apply. Um, After that, we kind of move on to income. So income, we require that the tenants provide 3 times their monthly rent in their gross income, and that can be combined income. So if you have a husband and wife, they both work, it's combined income. Um, and so, yeah, that's pretty straightforward. We require copies of paycheck stubs, at least 2 of the most recent ones. If they're a 1099 or self-employed, will require like the W-2s or 1099 form. If they have any social securities, child support, anything like that, we'll ask them to provide proof of that. Um, if they're like a server or have anything that they get cash, we'll require that they provide bank deposits showing that that income's actually going into their account, that they've got steady income that they're providing. So these are all just ideas of kind of, as you guys are running your own applications, what things we're kind of looking for to make sure that we're collecting and getting the best tenants in place. After that, we will collect a verification of rental history. So we'll call the last 2 years worth of landlords, and make sure that they have positive rental history, that they don't have any outstanding judgments, outstanding balances, anything like that. And then if they own a home, we'll do a Google search and we can look on Google Maps and see, we'll do kind of look for any history that shows like the yard looks good, they're taking care of their own personal house. Because if they're not taking care of their own house, then that could be a red flag of how they're going to take care of one that they're just renting. So, and then after that, we verify rental history. So what we do with that, and I've got a form that I'm happy to share with you guys, or kind of give you some nuggets that we ask for. So a lot of landlords, if you are trying to get verification from an apartment complex or a property management company, they're going to require that there's an authorization form that the tenant gave you as the new management company to release their information from the existing management company. That gets automatically generated through our application system. So it's really easy to print out, but yeah, you do have to have that. And then what we do is we send them the authorization from the tenant. And then there's a 1-page form that we ask a property management company or whoever the landlord is to fill out. And we've tried to make it as simple as possible. It's a fillable form. We email to them and then we ask them to get it back. I have, I have notice that if I can get someone on the phone, like actually talk to a property manager or a mom and pop landlord, they'll give me the verification over the phone if they don't require that. So I don't always offer that authorization form up front. I try to get the verification over the phone because usually it takes multiple attempts to try to get this, because property managers feel like they're too busy to help others. And, really we're doing each other a service by sharing this rental history and being honest about it, so we can weed out the bad tenants and help each other get good tenants in place. So I always take those serious and I'll always fill them out fully and to the best of our ability of what we know for the tenant. And just be sure when you're filling those out that you're not, we have to be careful of not being discriminatory against the tenant as a person, or so we can't go after like I didn't like how they communicate. Well, that's a gray area because you can't say that, but you just have to be sure that because you didn't like the tenant, but they always paid rent on time, they kept your house clean, and they were technically overall a good tenant, but maybe you guys just didn't click. You can't discriminate on a personal preference. It's got to be just true fact about the property, what they paid, how they kept the property, and then move it forward that way. Um, and then obviously we'll pull a credit history. This is kind of our breakdown of what we require. This fluctuates a little bit and it's kind of up to the manager's discretion. But our attorney says, I wouldn't give a hard rule that's like anyone under 600 is denied, right? Because there's a lot of people that might have a little bit less credit but have great rental history. They've got good income, maybe they had some medical debt, or maybe there was a divorce or something that's bringing their credit down. And so that hard and fast rule is like, I don't approve anyone with under a 600 credit score. Be careful of that and just look at the application on the whole. And when tenants call in and say, hey, I've got poor credit, are you going to deny me? I never say yes or no. I always just say, we look at the application on a whole, we make our decision from there, and I'll let you know where you're at. I never get into that. A lot of tenants want to call and just say, before I spend $30 to submit an application, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. You just don't know until you run backgrounds and you run their criminal history and what's going to come up or not. Because a lot of tenants could be the best tenants on the phone and say that everything's great, but until you pull stuff and have it in front of you, you just don't know. So credit history and criminal history pulls on the same report. It'll pull a sex offender registry. It'll pull anything misdemeanor to felony to jail, everything. So it kind of pulls that. Um, One thing to be weary right now with criminal history, in the last 2 seminars I've sat through with our attorney, this is one that's been kind of a hot topic as far as people denying criminal histories. It's not as prevalent here in Utah, but more um, kind of in lower poverty states where there's predominantly lower class neighborhoods that have higher crime, and they are twisting that and saying, well, you're discriminating not on crime but on color or race. And so that's been a very like blurred area. So just be careful when you're looking at criminal history. The advice that our attorney gave us is, it's a risk factor, right? Like if they got a drinking ticket 5 years ago, are they really that big of a risk to the property? Probably not. But if it was, you know, distributing drugs less than a year ago, that's a higher risk. You should probably deny. So, if you ever get in a situation where you're trying to run an application, you're just not sure, let us know. I'm happy to kind of run questions through our database and our networks and see how we can help kind of weed through that, because it is one that I've seen people getting in trouble for. Um, and then moving on, we've got a zero tolerance policy for smoking. I mean, it's everyone's personal preference, but I recommend that. It's just hard to clean up. It's hard to get out of places. It's just not something that long term is a positive impact on your properties, even if you wanted to charge more for it. I have heard landlords say, well, yeah, I allow smokers and I just charge them $50 a month because it's not a protected class, right? A smoker is not a protected class and I can charge whatever I want. Yeah, sure, but the long-term effect on your property and things like that just kind of getting messy. So with occupancy, we adhere to the 2+1 rule, which is pretty most state local laws kind of adhere to that as well, which is 2 adults per 1 bedroom. And then the +1 is usually an infant or a child. So if you've got a 2 bedroom house, 2 adults and a baby, but as they grow or their family grows, you might need to move them into another property that will hold or adhere to them. So our pet policy is pretty straightforward. I have a question for everyone on the call. Who's in favor or not in favor of pets? Coco, what about you? What's your thoughts on a pet policy?
So when I first started, I was not in favor, like at all. I was like, no pets.
Mhm.
But as I've learned and as I've kind of, evolved as a landlord, I'm okay with it. as long as we take the proper precautions, which are, charging the pet deposit, getting that extra rent per month,
Mm-hmm.
making sure they understand that, any damage caused by their pet, they're going to be responsible for,
Mm-hmm.
putting that in the lease, things like that.
Cool. Cool. I agree. I totally agree. Alan, what about you? What are your thoughts on pets?
I think dogs are good, cats are bad. That's where I stand.
Sure.
I
And
hear all
and
the cats
the
going.
cat thing, the cat thing is really about the marking that happens so much more
Yeah.
often with cats than it does with dogs. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think John mentioned, yeah, I love the extra 150 we charge for pets. No cats though. Yeah. So it seems like we're kind of on the same page across the board. So with the pet policy, as you guys know, you do have to allow pets, even if it is a dog or a cat, if they're a certified emotional support service, whatever. We do require that they fill out, it's a packet from our actual attorney that says, hey, you said you have an emotional support animal. That's great. Here's the list of hoops that we're going to have you jump through to have that actually be approved or not. Um, and so just kind of keep that in your wheelhouse. You can ask for them to provide information on the disability, right? If they're saying they have this pet and they need it, you're okay to ask for that proof.
What kind of proof would they provide for that disability? Like, what have you received in the past?
So we get actual doctor's notes, true doctor's notes. We'll call and verify with the doctor and say, hey, you signed this dotted line that says you're prescribing this person to have a pet. Is this true? Is this a family member? And so we'll actually call and vet the doctor's office. We do require that that the tenants provide all information on the pets, rabies or vaccinations, I guess, for pets, and making sure that they're true service animals.
Because you can get those online, can't you? They go online and get them. How do you handle those?
So we don't allow any online certification, like the $25 card saying, hey, I've got a service animal that's registered to me. If we ever get provided that, I always send out the packet and say, thanks for providing this. We actually require this to live in one of our homes. And I'm happy to send out that packet. If you guys want to email me, I'm happy to send out that packet to anyone who needs it. And Dom can put my email in the chat bar for you guys. That was a great question. Awesome. And then,
Hey,
so
Krista, can I follow up on that one?
yeah, please.
Just another question. So do you distinguish between service animal and support animal?
Same thing.
Okay.
I treat them the same.
Okay. Just say,
Yeah.
send them over the packet. It has to come from a doctor.
Yep, I treat them the same. Yeah, because technically they're both prescribed. They should technically both be prescribed, right? An emotional support animal usually gets prescribed because there's some sort of trauma or mental disability. Same thing with like a seeing eye dog or something for seizures or diabetes. They're all prescribed from a physician, and that's how they should be handled. So I treat them the same.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, and then really quickly, so deposits our deposits are equal to 1 month's rent. And then we require that to be paid in full before they move in, and then the other move-in costs are charged once they are ready to move in. And then we do require renter's insurance. I would absolutely require renter's insurance. If any of our tenants don't provide renter's insurance, we automatically enroll them, and we tell them that in the application and on the lease. If they don't provide rental insurance, we're going to automatically enroll you. It will not cover your personal belongings, but it's going to cover our asset, and we're going to protect ourselves. So it's really cheap. Renter's insurance, if any tenant box, it's very cheap, like as low as $10 a month. So we don't ever waver on renter's insurance. It's absolutely required by everyone. So Don Ray, that's a good question. You cannot charge pet rent or pet deposits for emotional support or service animals. Utah law doesn't, you can't. What you can do though, is they are still responsible to have it be protecting the property or being a good pet landlord. So if you have a service animal and you go to the property, you notice that there's pet damage from this said service animal, you can still charge accordingly, post 3-day notices accordingly. There's associated fees to get the property back into condition. So you can charge that, and you can hold them accountable to be good pet owners. But no, you cannot charge any pet rent, any pet deposits. You can't charge any of that. So that was a great question. Thank you.